Hello, I'm Jay, owner of Volunteer Audio in Oliver Springs, Tennessee, and the time is finally here. I'm making a step-by-step video on how to install the new Precision Power drop-in subwoofers. The number one call we get is people wanting more bass in their Harley, but they never want to lose permanent space. We do some builds where we cut in 10-inch subs. There's some other companies that have had some drop-in enclosures that are very lackluster, but so far I'm super impressed with this sub. Hang out as I go over everything it comes with, how to install it, and let you hear the end result. This video is brought to you by VolunteerAudio.com, your number one source for all things Harley Davidson audio. From individual radios, speakers, and amps to complete plug-and-play amp and speaker systems, we've got you covered. And once you've ordered your package from Volunteer Audio, it includes lifetime tech support. And we have the very best step-by-step installation video so you can install it yourself and save money. All right, so let's talk about what comes in the box when you get your Precision Power HD14.SBWL. Now there's also an R or L at the end of that part that signifies it being a right or left subwoofer, because you can buy these only one or you can buy a pair to go in your Harley. All right, so inside the box you're going to get this. This is a already pre-built enclosure. It has two woofers on the bottom of it, very, very heavy built, with a 300 watt RMS Class D amplifier built right into the top. This is going to be one of the easiest things you've ever installed that'll give you a lot of extra bass. Very well built ABS injection molded plastic. The amplifier can actually be swapped out later if need be for some reason. We don't foresee failures, but if so, they've made it where it's easily serviceable. But let's look at what comes in it, because I'm pretty excited about this install. We get a 30mm drill bit and a 16mm drill bit. Now we'll show you later why you're going to need both of those and what we're going to be doing with it. The beauty of this is we're going to be actually mounting wiring into a bag that's easily separated and undone. So if you need the space for a long trip, you simply take your sub out. If you're in town and you don't need that space, you can drop your sub back in, connect it, and have awesome bass while you're riding around. All right, so it's going to come with a power and ground harness. Simply goes from the battery back to a quick disconnect that plugs in here at the sub. It's going to come with some signal wiring that runs from the radio back to this to give you signal. So it's going to have its amp turn-on wire built into that, as well as the signal from the radio. This will work with factory radios. Very, very simple. Just tee this in behind the radio, plug the amp turn-on wire into one of the factory connectors in the fairing, and connect your signal wire, all with plug-and-play harnessing. That's if you have a stock radio. If you've bought one of the Soundstream radios, whether that be the HD13 Plus or SI in the newer box, or the HD9813RG for Roadglide or SG for Streetglide, this is going to simply plug into the subwoofer output on that radio, connect to your signal wire, plug into one of the accessory connectors in the fairing or the amp turn on the radio, and you've got it wired. It's really that easy. If you can run a backbone harness and install 6x9s in a lid, you can install this. Now, to get the sound out of the bag, a lot of times when you drop a speaker in your bag, you have to cut a hole somewhere. You got to get the sound out. Most of the time that requires a router, some crazy templates, a lot of things you may not have at the house. We're going to be using one 30mm drill bit, as well as this template, to drill some holes in the bottom of our bag. 15 of them to be exact. Now, you're probably thinking, you're going to drill 15 holes in the bottom of my bag? Well, it's going to come with this. This is an adapter that's going to go into that 30mm hole. It's got a hydrophobic textile or cloth inside that lets sound through but won't let water through. So air can breathe through but water won't get into the bag. Simply put this in where we drilled the hole, put the nut on top, and tighten it down. And now we have a watertight seal that lets all this bass radiate out of the bottom of the bag. Like I just said, you get a template. I've got a bag here to kind of show you. If you take your bag and you flip it upside down, you lay this template over, and there are these little indentions exactly where you're going to be drilling your 15 holes in the bottom of the bag. So no guesswork here, just follow the directions, put this on and drill each hole, and then install each one of those little bushings. And we'll show you how to do that here in just a few minutes. Very, very simple process. Now, as you get if you have a 2017 or newer, you're not going to use those big twist-in bag mounts anymore. You're going to get these new threaded mounts that have a little lever on it here that you're going to tighten in. It also has a place for a Phillips screwdriver. We can't use those big swinging levers with this drop-in sub, so they do supply you with the bolts you need. So everything we need to do this. So if we're doing one sub, we're just going to use a 90-degree L to go from our signal wire to what goes to the bag. If you're doing two, they send you a T to go in, and they actually send you the signal wiring to do the second sub at the time of just buying one of them. So you're ready to put that second subwoofer in if you decide to add one at a later time. Wonderfully made product, very, very easy to put in, and everything you need is included in the box. But let's talk about clearance with lid speakers. If you have factory 5x7 speakers, this is going to clear it no problem. Just leave the 5x7s or upgrade the 5x7s, they're going to clear. Now when it comes to 6x9, 6x9s can be rather deep. So you're not going to fit a 6x9 in a CVO adapter from 5x7 to 6x9s and clear this enclosures. There's just not enough room. If we're doing a cut kit from Precision Power or Rockford Fosgate or one of the many other companies that make a cut-in kit, you're going to need a shallow 6x9 to fit. Now as far as I know, this is the only shallow 6x9 on the market. It's made by Precision Power, and they did an amazing job not sacrificing sound but not taking up any space. It's right at 2.5 inches thick. So when this is in your lid in a cut kit, it's going to close and it's going to clear this woofer. Now how they did that was they moved the magnet from the back of the speaker to the front around the pole piece of the tweeter here. So the magnet's up here. It's ingenious for several reasons. It doesn't take up as much space, but also as the wind's blowing over the lid of your Harley Davidson on your side bag, it's cooling the magnet, the hottest part of your speaker, instead of keeping that heat inside the bag. Now we'll be coming out with some additional parts later to modify and make some more depth that we'll be selling separately, as well as pre-installing for people with deeper 6x9s, including the Pro Series 6x9s we expect to come out later from Precision Power. But let me tell you, for their price point, you can't beat this 6x9. It's amazing, and you're not going to sacrifice sound by going to these over one of the other brands. Let's get to our Harley. We'll start cutting up our bags, putting a bunch of these bushings in the bottom, show you how easy that is. We'll drop this in and get it wired, and then we'll show you how to wire it on the motorcycle. All right, so the first step, I've taken the bag, the side bag, off of our Harley Davidson. This is off Project 5.0 if you've watched our other videos. We've removed the lid, the speaker lid. It's just 4 T15 screws holding that on. It's very simple to remove it. So we've took that off so we can bring our bag over here, and we flipped it upside down so you can watch the beginning where we're going to drill each one of these holes. Now what I've done is I've taken this piece of plastic. I know it looks like packing material when you get the sub, but it's not. And we're going to set it on top of here, and we're just going to push it down into this indentation where the factory rail goes into the bottom of the bag. When we do this, we're going to make sure we have this in the right place. Now all along this, you'll see there are little indented little dots. If we'll take our 30mm bit that came in our kit, we're just going to take our drill, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark each one of these. We're just going to take it and we're going to drill just enough to leave the mark in the bag so we know where to drill later. So I'm just going to go along this bag, doing this all the way down through here. There are 15 of these, so take a second to do them all. This allows you not to have to guess how close you need to drill each one of these holes. It's really a good idea, and I'm glad they included it. Now we have 2 more over here. So now that we have them all marked, we're just going to take this off. All right, so one at a time, we're going to just go back to where we marked earlier, and we're going to drill this hole all the way through. Now this is going to throw a lot of plastic. It's going to make a lot of mess. You probably want to put on some safety glasses. Don't do it the way I'm doing it. All right, so let's get drilling this hole. Change our speed. All right. So there's one hole through. As you see, we've slung plastic everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and drill all 15 of these holes, and we'll get right back with you and show you how to install the bushings. All right, so we have all 15 holes drilled into the bottom of the bag using their template. Very, very easy to do. Now we're going to take each one of these hydrophobic textile bushings. That's the word they use for it, so we're going to share it. We're going to install one at a time. Just stick it in the hole, take the nut on the inside, tighten it down. There is a gasket already on this pre-installed to make this super simple. That as you tighten it down, this gasket's going to tighten down onto that painted surface. It's going to make it watertight. And that little cloth in there is going to make it where we get all of our base, but we don't get the water in. Super simple because most people have a drill and the ability to drill these into the bottom of the bag. And we're hoping to source these. We're working on it with them. Even for people who do not have the subwoofers, we think this is a great idea because we did one and we pulled the sub out and you would not believe how much more bass our 6x9 had ported out of the bottom of the bag too. So whether it's for the sub or 6x9s, this is an awesome idea. Works really, really well. So I'm going to continue putting these in. We'll get all 15 in and then we'll bounce back here and show you how to drop the sub in, mark out, and get your wires connected and mounted into the bag as well. All right, so all 15 of the bushings are in the bottom of the bag. I'm just going to go over and just make sure I've tightened each one as much as I can by hand. They are plastic, so we're not going to take any large tools and try to strip them out. Here in a second, I'll have this done, and we'll come back to taking a few more things apart, dropping the sub in, and marking out where we're going to put our wiring. All right, so to make sure that we can easily drop our sub in here, we're going to remove each one of these latches so we can get it in there. It's just going to be 4 T20 Torx on each end. We'll be putting these back in after we get the sub in place. All right, so now we've dropped our sub into our bag. The next thing we need to do is we need to measure out and we need to drill our holes for these wires. Now they're going to give you an idea of where you should drill that in the direction. They've sent out really good directions from Precision Power. I'm going to mark them myself. I'm going to see where they fit with lengthwise, and I'm going to drill the hole with the included 16mm bit that comes from them. And then each one of these ends has its own nut already on it and a gasket. So we're just going to put it into the hole. We're going to tighten it on the other side. We're going to have both of our disconnects. All right, so in the directions from Precision Power, they tell you to come up an inch higher than this and really put it at the very top. The issue is on our bike, we have a metal support behind that this bolt goes through, and I want to make sure it clears it. So I'm going to go right in line with it, and we're going to come over as far as it will let us come over and still have enough lead. So I'm going to mark that myself and drill the hole with that included bit. All right, so now I'm just going to drill my next one next to it, get it mounted in, then I'm going to take it back out. I'm going to vacuum any of the shavings out from underneath the sub where we just drilled it, and then we're going to go over and we'll run some wiring on the bike. Then I'll show you how to put it back on. All right, so most likely our 90-degree connection is going to be facing downward when we install this on our bike. So we want to go ahead and take each connection now, go ahead and plug it in, make sure it's pointed downward, tighten it up in that place. All right, so these only go on one way. There's a little groove. So we're going to put it in there. Now we're going to bring it around this direction till it's pointed the right direction. Once it's there, we'll go ahead and tighten that nut up a little bit more so it'll try to stay there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put each one of our latches back inside the bag where our lid's going to latch. Same thing, just T20 Torx, 4 screws on each end. Already got that one on. We're going to put this one in place. These are not specific to a location, so they'll go front or rear. Let's talk about connecting up our new drop-in subwoofers to our radio. Now this is Project 5.0. We have an HD14.SI, the Soundstream Reserve SI radio in it. And on the back of it, it has 3 sets of RCA outs. The ones all the way to your right, if you take the caps off of them, are green in color. And those are our subwoofer outputs. And we're going to take the supplied cable that comes from Precision Power, and we're just going to plug into both of these. Once those are plugged in, we're either going to take this and plug it into our amp turn-on wire, which I've already got used by my other amplifier, or we're going to route it up and we're going to plug it into one of the factory accessory ports. Normally they're going to have a little block off pre-installed in it, so we're going to simply plug that in there. And now when our ignition comes on, our subs are going to come on. Now the other side of this is a waterproof connector that we're going to run our input connector, the long cable is going to go here, and we're going to route it up under our backbone, under our gas tank. Now, if you don't have the Soundstream Reserve radio, it's going to come with this harness, and you're simply going to unplug that factory radio harness, plug this into your radio, and plug the factory harness back into the other side. Same exact idea on the amp turn-on wire, plug it into one of the accessory ports in the fairing, and then run your signal wire back to the rear, where we're going to branch it off to our 2 subwoofers. All right, so we've taken our signal cable. This is the one that plugged in behind the radio. We've routed it down the side of our neck here on our Streetglide, or Electroglide in this case. We've ran it in the backbone along with our other wiring that we had from our previous install. Now we're just going to run this here to the battery area. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap back on, put the gas tank back on, and we'll catch up here under the seat here in just a minute. All right, so let's talk about routing our cables, what we're going to do. So we have a signal cable as well as a power and ground cable. We've got our side cover off, we've got our bag off. We're going to try to go through here where the ABS module is and just kind of get our wire out here. We're going to feed it through here as well. And the plan is going to be that we come up through here and we're going to secure our wiring to these 3 factory locations here. I'm going to do the same thing with our signal wire, get it up here. I'm going to loosely zip tie them until we get our bag in place. Once we get our bag where it goes, then we'll secure all of those down. Now you would do the same thing on the other side. It's just important that you secure them up because we don't want it to get into a wheel, a caliper, a belt on the other side, and so on. So once we get our cables routed in the right direction, and they're out here, we're just going to take a couple zip ties. We're going to go through these factory loops here. This is what it's for from the factory, is to hold wiring. We're just going to start each one of these loosely. Don't tighten them up yet. All right, so now we're going to take our bag, we're going to set it down, get each one of these connected. Once we get them connected, then we'll come back in here and we'll tighten the zip ties and cut them to length. All right, I want you to notice something. Look down here where our wires go through our bag. We had to come out far enough to clear this metal support to make room. Now I'm going to lean this bag back enough that I'll take each one of our cables, we're going to plug it in. Now the 4-pin is our power cable. And the power cable is the one closest to the back. It's the bigger cable. So I'm just going to plug it in, screw it in place, make sure it's all the way in and tight. I'm going to take our signal cable, and it's going to go in our front position here. Now each one of these only go one way. There's a little groove in them. Got to line that groove up. Once that groove is lined up, then we're just going to tighten that nut down. So if we were going to remove this, we talk about this being a removable sub enclosure, we would take our bag loose, we would lean it out enough that we could disconnect each one of these. We would then have to remove each one of these latches. At that point, we just simply lift it out. We could put our latches back on, secure our bag in, we could go about our way. And zip tying these up like this, we'd want to make sure we just had them secured so that if we're on that trip, that wiring that we've left in there doesn't get into a wheel, caliper, and such as well. So now that I've got that at the length I want it, which is enough to lean it out like this, I'm just going to tighten each one of these up. Then we're going to take a zip tie cutter and just flush cut the cables. Now, always when you're done after the fact, you can look back up through here and just make sure there's no clearance issues with anything. But I think we're going to be pretty good on this one. Let's go ahead and get our, I want to go ahead and put our front quick turn back in just to hold our bag. Now, I highly, highly suggest, and I haven't done it on the front of this bag yet, but to definitely change out from these quarter turns to a threaded insert, especially with the extra bass we're going to have from this. Now, they're going to be supplied from Precision Power, but you're going to need the clip, the threaded clip that goes in there. I use a bag lock from Robert Becker Design, so I'm going to continue to use my lock. That way, if anybody was to ever pry open my lid, they can't steal my bag. Or if I just forgot it unlocked for that matter. So one lock on each side tightened up. I don't have to worry about the bag ever falling off. You definitely don't want to look behind you and the bag be missing. That would be terrible. So we're going to move forward. I'm going to get our lid back on, as well as I'm going to thread in my lock in the back. And we'll come up here and I'll show you how that we're going to make these connections under the seat. All right, so now we're going to connect our signal wire from the front to the back. You'll notice they give you this nice T. We're doing 2 subwoofers. If you were only using 1 sub, you would just use this 90. But where it comes to under the seat, we're simply going to put this in where it goes. There's, as all the rest of them, there's a little notch, only lets it go one way. It does not matter which one is left, which is on which side. There's not a left and a right on subwoofers. They are mono. This is also a mono subwoofer amplifier. All right, so at this point, I've got my battery tray off because I just made the connections to the battery. I'm going to put it back on because I'm going to leave this on top of the tray when we get done. So let me do that and we'll jump back to finishing up making that last connection. All right, so I've got the battery tray back on. We've got our power and ground was connected to the battery. We've made our 3rd connection here on this T. So right there is where the signal comes back and tees out. It's all waterproof connectors. So we put it right here on top of the battery with the rest of this factory wiring. Our seat will go back on next. I'll go and get the lid on with our Precision Power 6x9 in it. We're about ready to fire this thing up and take a listen to it. So let's check out and see how awesome it is. Seat's going on. We'll hop right back out with the lid and then we'll get to listen to it. All right, so we got our sub in. I think it looks great. I got the lid back on. We got our Precision Power 6x9 installed. That's the shallow one that's going to clear no problem when we open and close our lid. Plenty of room there for it. Again, in the future, we'll make an additional part that can be added in here just to recess the front for deeper 6x9s. But this 6x9 is phenomenal. So if you're thinking about doing the subs, I would highly suggest just going ahead and buying this set of 6x9s. At their price point, they're great. So we told you in this video, we're going to show you how to get more bass. And here in just a minute, we're going to let you hear how we got more bass. But there's one important thing I want to talk about first, and that's polarity or speaker phase. So Harley is very inconsistent in the wiring they do in the bike. This has been a trouble for everybody that builds plug-and-play kits, from Rockford to Sinister to Sounds to Volunteer Audio and Precision Power. We have to fight with the fact that they may have a speaker wired backwards somewhere in the bike factory. So if we follow what they did or use their harnessing, sometimes we find out we have a speaker out of phase. And the number one thing I test for when somebody stops by with a Harley and they complain about not having enough bass, the first thing we do is we check all the speakers for polarity, and almost every time we find it somewhere out of phase. I had a lady here yesterday, worked on her bike, both rear speakers were out of phase from the front, and what that does is it gives you no mid bass. Your mid bass is just gone, you got a lot of high range. When we have a speaker that's wired opposite of another speaker, there's just no hope for good mid bass. So we're gonna do a polarity check. Once we get the system on, we're gonna check the bottom where the bass is coming out of the bag, and we're gonna check the top where our 6x9 is playing, and we're gonna check and make sure they're in phase with each other. If they're out of phase, we're gonna have to do something to fix that. I believe in this radio for the SI, I have the ability to change the phase of the subwoofers 180 degrees simply by pressing a button. Now, if we had this on a factory radio and it was out of phase, we would have to either swap the input signal wires or we would swap the wires at each one of the speakers in the bike, which is probably going to be an easier task. Hopefully they're pretty consistent and in phase for you. But I'll show you that test now, and here soon we'll do a video just on polarity and try to show you how big a difference that makes in a video as well. All right, so I just told you one of the most likely problems we see in Harley Davidson audio of any brand by any installer is phase issues or speaker polarity being incorrect. Now that happens to us as well, and so every single install that I do, I use a phase or polarity checker to check if our speaker is wired in a positive or negative manner. We want them all to match. This little tool is very, very inexpensive, and what it does is you play a track. It comes with a CD. We know you don't have a CD player, so we normally go to YouTube and we play a track. I'll make a comment below and I'll put this track at the top of it for you so you'll be able to find it. But it's a track we play on YouTube that just gives you some little pops. You simply hold this button in, you hold it in front of each speaker, and it's either going to give you 3 green flashes and a red flash, or 3 red flashes and then a green flash. The important thing is that it matches at all locations. I don't really care if it's 3 red and a green or 3 green and a red, as long as all of them give us that same thing. So I'm going to start this playing, and I want you to come over and check out how this works. So I'm going to hold it in front of our 6x9. See, we've got 3 greens and a red. We'll go up here to our 6.5. Try to get it where you can see it. All right, so you want to be at the right volume that you see that change. If you turn it up too much, you're going to get all of one color. But now that we have our subs in, let's go down to the bottom of our bag where our portholes are. And you'll see our subs are actually out of phase. We get 3 reds and a green. So let's go up here on our radio. On the Soundstream SI, we can go into the settings menu. We can go to sub, we can turn our sub up and down. We can also just hit the phase 180 out. So I just corrected our phase. Now let's go back down here to our sub. Three greens and a red. Just that easy, we fixed that phase issue. So let's get some music. It's going to have to be copyright free. Let's listen to see just how big a difference these subs have made. All right, so we're ready to listen to it. I think it sounds amazing. We've already been testing it out. Few things to keep in mind. First off, if you've got a small phone, the speaker in it's probably not big enough to let you hear what the bass would sound like. Same thing on our bike. We're not going to get a lot of bass from a 6.5-inch speaker like we are a true subwoofer. Since we're playing those low tones, please get a set of headphones. Watch it on a full-size computer with larger speakers, or maybe even your TV. But hopefully, no matter where you're listening, you hear a difference in it. The problem we have is no matter how we do this, what mic we use, it never sounds as good through your speaker as it does in person. So I hope you'll take the time to visit Volunteer Audio and listen to it in person. I'd love to let you hear it. So we've got a song we're going to turn on, we're going to play for you. It's a little blues track. I'm going to turn the sub on and off, and just look for me because I'll tell you when it's on and when it's off. We're going to do that through the radio. So let's check this out. I really hope that came through on your end like it did on mine, because I can feel that bass radiating in the floor. I can feel it on my clothing. It's got really good bass. Now, is this $5,000, $6,000 sealed ported bag, 10-inch sub, 1,000-watt bass? No, but it's definitely a lot more bass than you're ever going to get from 6x9s or a 6.5. Something to make it very full, to make it sound really good and enjoyable, but at the same time, the ability to take that out of your bags and at a much lower cost than some of these comp bikes with these huge subwoofer setups in it. And we also did not make it unrideable like some of the comp bikes are. So I think it sounds great. I think it's well worth the investment to add these to your system. I try not to steer you wrong. Until I try it, until we use it, we don't ever bring them in and tell you to buy anything unless we think that it's going to be worth what it costs. So we checked them out in Vegas. We showed you that in our previous video. We now have them here in person. And I'll tell you, I've got my bike up on one of these Let's Roll jacks, so it's quite a bit off the floor. The more I lower it down to the floor and put it on its stand, I think the bass is going to be even better, because if you remember, it's all radiating out of the bottom of that bag and then reflecting off the ground. Now, I never want to oversell anything. Are you going to be able to hear this at 80 miles an hour? Probably not. I think you'll be able to tell if it's on or off. I think you'll be able to feel it. But I think as you slow down to 45, 50 miles an hour, and even down to when you're riding through the parking lot showing off to your friends, you're going to enjoy these subs and you're going to think they're worth what you paid for them. Thank you so much for watching. Another great product from Precision Power. Guys, you've done it again. Another game changer in the Harley world. And we're so proud to be dealers for them and have it available to sell to you. Please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Both those things help us tremendously. Liking it, more people are going to see it because YouTube is going to move it up in the results. Subscribing is going to allow you to see more content from us and more views in the future as well. And we thank you so much for that. Please comment below if you have any questions. I'd love to answer them for you. I'm going to comment myself and kind of put it at the top, the YouTube track that we do for the polarity test. So important. If you say I'm not going to invest in subs, please, please check the polarity of your system. Make sure it's right because your mid-bass is going to be a lot better when it is, just as you saw we did in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Go to volunteeraudio.com. You'll see links above throughout the video to these subwoofers. And I forgot to mention to you, there's two different models. There's the HD14.SBWL, that saddlebag woofer for 14 and newer. There's a right and a left. There's also an HD13.SBWL. The 1998 to 13 guys, we didn't forget about you. We've got your subwoofers too that fit that style bag. So all those are available at volunteeraudio.com. The link above is going to take you to a place where you can find them all. You do need those shallow 6x9s or no 6x9s at all, such as 5x7s or maybe a lid that doesn't even have a speaker. Those Precision Power speakers sound great as you hear here in the video as well. Thank you so much, and as always, God bless.